Hey, what's up guys? You're watching Epic Pokemon TCG, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at my list for the top 10 cards from Sun and Moon Burning Shadows. And so if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and let's get on Pokemon TCG Online to take a look at the list.
Alright, so to start off my top 10 list, I have Alolan Ninetails. Now, I honestly think this is easily one of the very best cards that's come out in this set. I would rank this higher, but I just want to go ahead and start this video off with this one. This has Luminous Barrier, prevent all effects of attacks including damage done to this Pokemon by your opponent's GX or Pokemon EX. And then it has Aurora Beam for 80 damage, and then of course you can put a Choice Band on this and hit those GX and EX Pokemon for 110 damage. But pretty much with Hex Maniac rotating out, I believe, I don't think there is another print besides Ancient Origins. Basically everything that can't fit Garbodor in there and relies on GX and EX Pokemon are going to be in some trouble. And so they're probably going to really have to have those, pretty much those normal attackers like those stage 1 or basic attackers that can dish out a lot of damage in order to deal with this Pokemon. And with cards like Aqua Patch in the format, it's really easy to get this card set up, and in all honesty, 110 can be pretty difficult at times for a lot of those Pokemon that aren't GX or EX to knock out. So Alolan Ninetales definitely is one of the top cards in the set in my opinion, and I'm really interested to see how this card does perform once the rotation hits and even at Worlds. Alright, so the next card we're going to be taking a look at is going to be Marsh Shadow GX. Now, I think this card might see a little more love in Expanded, but still, this is a pretty easy card to splash in the decks, especially ones that have like things like Max Elixir in them. But it has Shadow Hunt. This Pokemon can use the attacks of any basic Pokemon in your discard pile, and of course you still need the necessary energy to use each attack. But it also has Beatdown if you're using Fighting Energy for 120, and then Peerless 100 Blows GX for 50 times each amount of basic energy attached to this Pokemon. So if you have something like a Rainbow Energy on there, you can use this attack. I think this would be a pretty cool card to see if you can possibly fit inside a deck that maybe like Drampa Garbodor for maybe the Mirror or something like that. But in Expanded, I think this alongside Battle Compressor would be a very interesting idea. I've even seen decks featured around that, running a lot of really popular cards such as Seismitoad and such in their decks, so that way they can Battle Compressor and use the ability Shadow Hunt to pull off those attacks. I think this is just all around a pretty fun card, and in all honesty, if you're able to pull it off, it can be pretty splashable in any deck, and also just gives you that additional type to attack with, such as Fighting, which can be really good against things like Zoroark, can be good against Drampa, and really all around just anything weak to Fighting. It has a weakness to Psychic, so that is something to note. It is very weak to Garbodor and Espeon GX, but still nonetheless, pretty neat card, and I had to include it on this list. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at another fun card, which is Alolan Muck GX. This has 220 HP, so that's pretty big, bulky Pokemon. But it has the attack Chemical Breath for 10 plus, and then this attack does 70 more damage for each special condition affecting your opponent's active Pokemon. And of course, we have Raichu that has an ability that paralyzes, and then we also have Salazzle, which can, I think it's Burn and Poison. And with cards in the format like Acerola, Super Scoop Up, and De-Evolution Spray, Alolan Muck might actually be a pretty playable card. Not necessarily a tier 1 deck, probably not even a tier 2 deck, but I think a fun little rogue deck that you can mess around with, and you can do a considerable amount of damage. I mean, you can of course run a Choice Band on there, so that 10 turns into 40 if you hit a GX or EX Pokemon, and then of course you have the 70 for each special condition on your opponent's Pokemon. And like I said, with cards able to pick up Pokemon and then you can play them back down, Alolan Muck can dish out a good amount of damage. And then of course it has Crunch for 4 energy. Probably would not recommend using this attack because if Alolan Muck goes down, then you are losing 4 energy. But it does 120, and you can discard an energy attached to your, pretty much an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. And then it has Tri-Hazard GX, which is a free attack. And what you do is you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active, and then the new Pokemon is Burn, Poison, and Paralyzed. So this does have synergy with its first attack, Chemical Breath. So if they're not able to use a switching card or something like that to get out of the active spot, well, then you're kind of setting yourself up for a free little KO. But Alolan Muck, though it is weak to Fighting, and I feel like Fighting might resurface going forward, it's still pretty neat. It also has a resistance to Psychic, which is something to note, so Garbodor might have a hard time knocking this Pokemon out. But at the same time, Alolan Muck at most will probably just be a fun deck, but still, it's a really interesting card, and it's something that I personally like. I think this deck could be fun, and I'm actually going to try to build it in the future and have a video on it. Next up, we're going to take a look at Acerola, and what this supporter does is you put one of your Pokemon that has any damage counters and all cards attached to it back in your hand. So essentially this is very similar to AZ, a card we have seen in the past, alongside Mr. Brownie's Compassion, except you have to have damage counters on that Pokemon. And so basically this can kind of just prevent your opponent a knockout. We saw how good AZ was in a lot of different decks, and just having that capability of just picking up something, maybe it's stuck in the active spot, maybe it's about to get knocked out. Either way, Acerola, pretty solid supporter, and I think more than likely going to be a one-of going in the future. Alright, the next card on this list is going to be Guzman, however you want to say this dude's name. But basically what this is Lysander's replacement. A lot of decks are actually benefiting from its second effect. What you do is you switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with their active, and then if you do, you switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. So things like Volcanion and Golisopod are going to get their effects, and it's just a really good card all around. Yes, that secondary effect might cause some issues in the future, whereas you might not have something on your bench that you necessarily want to promote, or it just kind of makes it to where if you can bring up something, you can knock it out with your active, but you have trouble retreating. Just things like that can come up. But at the same time, Guzman is a very solid card, just because it is basically an escape rope that you get to select, and it's an interesting card all around. But I think the big thing to note is that we are not going to have VS Seeker in the future for this upcoming format, unless it does get reprinted, of course. But I don't know. I think that this is a good replacement. I think that this is a very solid replacement, and a lot of cards are definitely benefiting from it. Of course, with Volcanic Heat on Volcanion, it can't use its attack next turn. But since Guzman allows you to switch, you can just bring up something that has a Float Stone or another powered up Volcanion, and then you can bring up something off your opponent's bench and just KO it if you're able to. But you guys get the point of what I'm trying to say. Also, along with that, first impression on Golisopod requires you to have it up off your bench, and so that kind of helps out here too. So all around Guzman, probably in my opinion the top 3 if I had to select these in order. So Guzman definitely top 3 as far as Burning Shadows cards and how good they are, mostly because this is going to be a staple. So next up, we're going to be taking a look at Kingdra. This is actually a really awesome card, one of my personal favorites from the set. Kingdra usually is like this, the good Kingdras anyway. They take 1 energy, they have some crazy effect. As a matter of fact, there was a Kingdra back in the Diamond and Pearl era that absolutely spit on me every time I played against it. Thank you, Jarvis, for that. But I ordered 4 of these online, and it is actually a pretty cheap card. But still, I think it has potential to be a pretty solid deck overall. It has Brine. This attack does 90 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. It has any damage counters on it. And then it has Tornado Shot for a base of 90. And what you do is you discard a water energy from this Pokemon. And this attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So, Tornado Shot kind of sets up knockouts for you. Kind of sets up Brine's effect. But I'm trying to figure out what I want to play this card with just to kind of spread some damage out. I thought about maybe Tapu Koko, the regular one. But then kind of came into that awkward thing where I'd have to put DCEs in there. But still, it's actually a pretty solid idea. I think just kind of have to mess around with it and see what I like exactly, because I do definitely plan on bringing this video for you guys. And so Kingdra, one of my personal favorites, and normally when the good Kingdras are printed, they take like 1 energy and they do something crazy. And this one, even though you do have to discard with Tornado Shot, it just takes a single energy, so that's pretty awesome there. And unfortunately, Dive Ball is rotating out, but still, I mean, you can play Aqua Patch with this card if you really wanted to. It might get too clunky, but still, that's an option. And 140 HP, not too bad. And honestly, you can Rare Candy from a Horsey into a Kingdra, attach 1 water energy, and this thing's ready to go. So it is weak to grass. That is something to note too. But still, I think Kingdra is all around very solid card. You guys can't see my hands, but I'm doing like the thumbs up. So on to the next card. All right, so the next card, I'm not even going to try to say this dude's name. I thought at one point it was Kawaii, and I just like really shook my head at that. But it's the Firedude from the show. Anyway, I think he has a Turtonator or something. I can't remember. But what this card does, you search your deck for up to 4 fire energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon. Then you shuffle your deck. So you can already see some kind of synergy with Volcanion. You can get a Volcanion set up pretty much turn 1. And with Tapu Lele in the format, this card is very searchable. You can search it out, use its effect, get it, and bam, there's a Pokemon ready to go. Also, on top of that, you can play this with a lot of slower fire decks, like Charizard is another option I was thinking about. Just playing like 1 or 2 in there just to kind of speed up the energy process, because God, that thing takes so many energy. But anyway, yeah, just all around. I mean, Volcanion with Brooklet Hill from Guardians Rising, Tapu Lele, just kind of making it a little more consistent, giving it another attacker. And then this card coming out too, Volcanion is seeming like a pretty big threat going into not only just Worlds, but the next format overall. And I think that this card just made Volcanion, it's just all around a lot better. Alright, this next one I wish wasn't printed, but it's a Auburn GX with Distort for 50, and your opponent can't play any item cards from their hand during their next turn. And then Sonic Volume for 120, your opponent can't play any special energy cards from their hand during the next turn. And then Boom Burst GX, this attack does 50 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. So pretty much it just kind of seems like Seismitoad and Giratina got together, made some sweet, sweet love, and Noivern came out. So that's what happened there. Hopefully Double Dragon does not come back. That's like the only thing that I'm hoping for, because this card is stupid. I don't know why. I've never been a fan of those cards that just shuts down stuff. So, that's why I'm being a little salty, I guess, is what the kids are saying these days about it. But yeah, Noivern, yes, I think it is very beatable. I mean, it's, any card's beatable, honestly. It also has Free Retreat. That is something to note. It has Free Retreat. Basically, this card I do think does have potential going forward. It's gonna be a competitor, but at the same time, you just gotta hope if Double Dragon does not come back, it stays gone, then I don't think this deck would get too crazy. But we'll just have to see going forward. Still, Distort and Sonic Volume are pretty solid attacks, and Boom Burst, I feel like there's other things you can play that would be a little more worth using your GX attack for the game. But alright, chill. But yeah, Noivern, as long as Double Dragon Energy does not come back, I'm pretty okay with this card. Alright, before I get into my top 2, I wanted to give an honorable mention real quick to Caterpie. If you guys didn't know this, in real life I do collect Caterpie, and I'm very happy anytime they print one, because this card this Pokemon is just absolutely adorable. Look at it, it's so cute. Alright, so coming in at number 2 on this list, and in all honesty, probably in my top 3, that's just my opinion, is going to be Gardevoir GX. Hopefully you guys saw this coming, and hopefully number 1 is blatantly obvious. But Secret Spring, once during your turn before you attack, you may attach a Fairy Energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. And then Infinite Force, infinite. This attack does 30 damage times the amount of energy attached to both active Pokemon. And then Twilight GX, shuffle 10 cards from discard pile into your deck. Oh my God. Oh my sweet buttery Jesus. This card's pretty insane. I actually own a Rainbow Hyper, whatever the heck you want to call it, rare on Pokemon TCG Online. But yeah, this card is being hyped up to be the next big thing. Like, it's, and with, honestly, I see why. I mean, Secret Spring just is an absolutely amazing ability. And on top of that, Infinite Force 30 times. Decks that have 2 energy on their Pokemon, that's 60 extra damage, and just with you alone, that's 90 damage. And if you have a choice band on it for 1 energy, that's like 120 damage, which is absolutely insane. Gardevoir can just put up gigantic numbers. On top of that, you can play Max Potion with this deck because your Pokemon only take 1 energy. I mean, if you look at that, it takes 1 energy for both attacks. And then late game, you can actually use Twilight GX, shuffle in like 2 lines of Gardevoir, and then like, some Fairy Energy, something like that. Just whatever you might need, just in that game at that moment. Overall, Gardevoir, very strong card, very good. And I can argue that this is probably the best card in the entire set. Pokemon-wise, just all-around, really awesome card, 230 HP. Metagross, you're going to need to step up big time. Because this deck is looking like it's going to be tier 1 100%. The only thing that's probably going to be the issue is probably going to be the setup, but at the same time, kind of like Kingdra, your attacks only take 1 energy, and with, Tapu Lele and Bridget being in the format, Chair, for God's sakes, chill. It's going to be very easy to set this thing up. All right, coming in at my personal number 1, okay, this is just my personal number 1, is Golisopod GX. This is honestly my favorite Pokemon besides, I think it's Midnight whatever the night form Lycanroc is. Yeah, this is probably my favorite Pokemon from Sun and Moon overall, and probably the next deck I'm going to be building in real life. As first impression for 30, if this Pokemon was on your bench and became your active Pokemon, this attack does 90 more damage. With Guzman, that is very easy. And then has Armor Press for 100 during your opponent's next turn. This Pokemon takes 20 less damage. And then Crossing Cut GX for 150, and you switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. So essentially, it just knocks the living crap out of your opponent's Pokemon, and then you just get it out of harm's way. It also has a very solid Wind Pod that came out. It's a lot better than the other one. But first impression just does 120 damage for 1 energy, basically, if you're able to pull off the effect, which is very easy. This card can benefit from Guzma. It can also benefit from Max Potion. And it's really cool. I like it. I've heard people say this. I've heard that just because Forest of Giant Plants rotated out, that this card's going to be bad, which is really stupid to me. I will just state that now. I think that saying grass Pokemon, period, are stupid because they have to abide by the rules of all the other Pokemon in the game. I think that's a really stupid statement. I think that just because, Broken Vine Space, Forest Giant Plants, whatever you want to call it, rotated out, grass Pokemon are bad now. That's just completely stupid. Because if you look at it, there's a lot of different cards in the format that have to abide by the waiting a turn rule. And I think that just because grass Pokemon lost their crack, that doesn't mean that, they're not good anymore. So I think Golisopod's a very solid card. Yes, it does definitely 100% get absolutely spit on by Volcanion. But you can play things like Zoroark to kind of keep that tame down. I don't necessarily know how that matchup's going to play out. But, generally Volcanion has a pretty big bench. And, you have Choice Band. So just have to test that match out and just kind of see how you want to go about it. I think you would probably go aggro Zoroark for the most part. But I don't see why you couldn't probably fit in something to, tech against it. But Golisopod, my favorite card in this set probably. My number one spot personally, even though I think Gardevoir is better than Golisopod, unfortunately. Still, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. If there's any cards I did miss that you like in this set, I do apologize. My top 10 list is just my personal picks from this set. You might have some different choices, and these cards were not in any specific order besides the final 2. So yeah, if you enjoy the video, you know what to do. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care. And hopefully I'm by 600 subs by now. If I am, thank you guys so much for that huge milestone. I really do appreciate the support. Take care. I love y'all so much. And this is Epic Pokemon TCG signing out.